Well, good morning, or early morning on the West Coast, a little bit later morning in the East Coast. And for Anthony, what is it? Good midnight for you, Anthony?
It's good morning officially, isn't it? There we go.
Yeah. Anthony's coming to us from Australia. We'll give it just a minute here. Got a couple people, lots of people just saying good morning in the chat. So we got people from all over. Irvine, Michigan, South Carolina, Texas.
Yeah, I know all these
I
know all these states and locales very well now. Last couple of days, been watching the map very closely.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Yeah, bright and early in California. So thanks for joining us. We'll get started. Welcome. My name is Dirk Ahrens. We'll do this is a little bit of a different event. So we'll do some quick intros on who you're listening to, and then a little bit of high level on what this event is. So one of the biggest events that we've done at Virtual Systems, and I know a big one for Veeam too. So a little bit of sneak peek into v11, and then some just kind of high level architecture stuff. So again, my name is Dirk Ahrens. I'm the president at Virtual Systems, and we are a cloud service provider. We're based in the Midwest, and all that really means is the cloud service provider part is that we help businesses in their cloud strategy. So we do all kinds of stuff. We're a big Veeam partner, the biggest VMware partner cert that you can have. We work a lot with public cloud stuff, and we have our own data center footprint. So if you're doing cloud stuff, we do that. So I'll turn over to Anthony, my counterpart for this webinar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dirk. So yeah, my name's Anthony Spiteri. I'm a senior global technologist in the product strategy team at Veeam. And what does that mean for you guys? That's basically the part of Veeam that we interact and are the conduit between the field, and the R&D to really push through features and functionality. So a lot of the stuff that we do, a lot of the conversations that my team has at that pointy edge gets fed back directly into the R&D department. And sometimes that means features. They get put into the backup replication and other sort of platform functions that we have. And we're going to talk about a few of those later on. And just as by way of background, before I joined Veeam, I worked for a service provider called ZetaGrid, which is one of the leading providers, much like Virtual Systems is in the States, in Australia, as a lead architect. So got a strong passion for the service providers and the tenants and partners that they service.
Perfect. Good stuff. So this is a little bit of a different webinar. So we're doing a little bit, I'm sure nobody's on here just to get a prize. But if you're interested, here's how it works. So imagine that we're in kind of a lecture hall, and Anthony and I are giving the lecture up in front. There's gonna be some good content that we go through, sneak peek into v11 stuff. But as the lecture is going on, you can turn to your friends and ask some questions. I used to work for a guy in the enterprise space, and he'd always say, if we only knew what we know. And the sentiment behind the statement was like, and this is a challenge for every business, how do we get all the stuff that we know in this room? Like, we got a lot of smart people in here. We're over 200 people who are in this webinar with us right now from all over the country and Australia. Potentially in Canada too, and we know a lot. And the big challenge is like, how do we? I mean, we could listen. You could listen to Anthony and I talk as we go here, but we want to provide some benefit, maybe just a platform play for a minute where we can have a live Reddit thread, and so in the Q&A here, you can ask people questions, ask us questions. We'll field some questions as we go. But the idea is, how do we kind of raise the bar in the community of people that all just came together for an hour here? And learn from each other. So that's what we want to incentivize, and we thought we'll do it by giving away prizes. So if you're adding to the conversation, if you're asking good questions, and you can upvote questions in there, you can answer questions in there. So if you see a question that somebody asks, we've got some folks on our team, some Veeam engineers who are going to drop answers in. Throw out your questions. And when you do that, we got a couple people who are watching the Q&A. and they're going to be throwing your name over to somebody else. So make sure your name is in there. If your name is not already in there, when you write a good question or answer something, put your name in parentheses. And then your name's going to go on a prize wheel. And about every 10 minutes, we're going to spin that prize wheel for some sweet stuff. We're starting on the low end with $100 Amazon gift cards. And then we're working our way up to $250 Amazon gift cards. And the last one is take your pick on a next-gen console, either the PS5 or the Xbox Series X.
Whoa. So, I gotta say, Dirk, this is the most amazing giveaway group and webinar I've ever seen. So you guys are very lucky to be on, but you got to be interactive. I can already see a couple of questions. They've started with a couple of tough ones actually. So this is going to be crazy. So let's get into it. And hopefully, if you guys ask questions, you can win some awesome prizes. Hopefully, you don't win the first ones because then you don't get the big one. But that's just luck of the draw, isn't it?
Good call.
But a win's a win.
Yeah, your name comes off the wheel. Yep, cool. If you want to win $10 now, you can go. We're going to run this list of people who are on this webinar against a list of people who followed Virtual Systems on social media today. So if your name shows up on both lists, we're going to send you either a $10 gift card, or we send you a hat or a mug from Virtual Systems, or you can donate it too if you'd like to. So you'll get an email afterwards. So you see there on the deck, go over to Twitter or Facebook, follow us, go over to LinkedIn, look for us, follow us. If you do that, we'll see that. And you get a $10 gift card right away.
Yeah, and to be fair, I can't guarantee a $10 gift card myself for people that follow me. But if you want to follow me at Anthony Spiteri, please feel free as well.
There you go. Anthony's got some terrific content. Does a podcast too that is really, really good. So it's worth the follow. We get a lot of our information at Virtual Systems because he's allowed to sneak peek it before a lot of other people at Veeam are. So that's the game. That's what we're doing. And here's kind of the agenda for today's thing. So we're going to do an architecture review on Veeam a little bit, just kind of high level, talk about the basic, we'll use the football analogy, like the basic blocking and tackling of Veeam. A lot of people inherit Veeam at Virtual Systems. We're a service provider, so we have a lot of customers who we have good conversations with, and they're like, look, I inherited Veeam. I don't really know how it works. I didn't buy it. I wasn't part of that purchasing decision. Now I'm working in it. How do I do it? So we're going to just kind of look at some of that high level, and then get into maybe the reason a lot of people are on here, and that's the sneak peek into V11, like what's coming. What are we going to be doing with Veeam? So, and that's some really cool, exciting stuff. So great question. Does Veeam make the admin, or does the admin make Veeam? And the idea there is, if you've got the right tool, and Veeam consistently is in the top quadrant of Gartner's Magic Quadrant for being the leader and being the innovator in the space, but that doesn't mean that you've got, we talked to a lot of people, they've implemented Veeam and they're like, look, I'm good. And we're like, look, you're not doing it right. So let's go through some of that stuff. Here's high level on the architecture. Big building blocks on the left. You got replication, CDP now, which Anthony's going to talk about, backups, serve a purpose, and then object storage. These are kind of the big broad strokes of Veeam. And you can see at the bottom there, as you move, across the continuum of hot stuff to colder stuff, when you're thinking about storage, those different pieces serve different functions. So your hot stuff is like, hey, our most valuable stuff, we want that readily available. Then we want to retain stuff very long term. We can put that into, cooler storage, or it serves a different purpose. We use it differently in Veeam. Anthony, you want to talk about a little bit of the smaller building blocks?
Yeah, and I think as well, just to go back to that previous slide as well, it's a great question because obviously Veeam can be pretty simple. Like obviously Veeam from a historical point of view has always been about simplicity, reliability, and flexibility. And for those that have been around Veeam for a while now, and Veeam as a company, we're going into our 13th year of product. There was a catchphrase for a long time that it just works, right? And that was built on the premise that you can kind of install it within 7 clicks and you'll be ready to go. Now, the reality of that is that it's also very scalable. And as we've grown through the product set, we've added features and enhancements that make it still fundamentally easy to install, but there's so much more to it, right? So from an architecture perspective, what you're seeing at the bottom there is, it's a policy-driven approach now, right? I mean, we've started with jobs, we started with backup. In fact, we started with backup and replication, which was the first data protection product to have backup and replication as one, right? So we've always started with that. And we always say start with backup. That fundamentally leverages, the VMware, it leverages Hyper-V, leverages snapshot technology, that agentless based backup. But now, when you look at it, we've kind of made this move towards, in the 9.5 era, branching out to object storage, archive tier. And in fact, before that, we kind of started that out already with our cloud providers offering Cloud Connect backup, as a place to put data off-site in that 3-2-1 rule. So what we're really adding now in V11, and we'll talk about that later on, is the CDP. And what that does, it means end-to-end, you've got this whole option now to basically go from low RPO to sort of medium RPO to almost extended, almost forever RPO, restore point objective, right? That's important. Not only is it Veeam backup and replication, but the platform as such, means that we've got these other products which all kind of fit together to add a whole solution. Did you want to add anything around that?
No, I think that's perfect. That's perfect. I think the idea that we're trying to drive home is that you can kind of think of Veeam in terms of almost like if we're looking at college courses, there's like the 101 and 201 of Veeam, which to you, Anthony, you just said like it's backup. Like make sure you got your backup in place, and then replication, make sure you got your stuff on hot standby, and then dial in your retention policies. And then, there's some other cool features that we'll talk about later using Veeam One in reporting, using VAO, where you start getting into like the master's level classes of Veeam, or really, kind of fine tuning it and taking advantage of everything that it actually can do for you. So no, that's totally that's good stuff. These were some of your slides to really kind of talk about Veeam as a platform.
Yeah, exactly. And just following up from that previous conversation, I mean, Veeam is now really a platform now covering, cloud, SaaS, virtual, physical, all starting and still kind of centralized around backup and replication. For those that are kind of familiar with, say, VMware, right? You saw what VMware did with ESX to ESXi, and then they brought in vCenter, and then they wrapped around networking, storage, APIs that wrap around it. So, from that point of view, that's kind of what we've been building over the past, well, actually 4 to 5 years, and it's accelerated since I've been here. And when we see that, great timing there on the transition, now we are covering a gamut of what I just talked about. When you look at the cloud, obviously the providers there, VSYSTEMS being one of those infrastructures as service providers offering cloud services as well. But obviously we understand, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, that people are obviously putting workloads in the public clouds, SaaS driven by Office 365 primarily, storing stuff on OneDrive and other sort of storage things. Oops, if we go back one more.
Sorry.
A bit. Oh, that's all right. No worries. And look, still not forgetting the fact where we came from with the virtual, but obviously extending that out now. Not just talking about VMware and Hyper-V, looking at Nutanix, AHV, and trying to draw into sort of more platforms as we build along, but also physical, understanding that there are still physical systems that need to be backed up. And that's where our agents come into play. And now we've got agents for Windows, Linux, Oracle, Solaris, AIX. We've just got a crazy amount of physical agents that are still very relevant. And I think if we look underneath, part of the sort of value add of Veeam and one of our biggest differentiators is our agnosticity, right, across the board. But it's agnostic for the storage. We give you guys, whether it's our partners, our cloud providers, or our customers, the ability to dictate what storage they want to use. We'll never lock you in to an appliance or to a box. And that's so critical. And that's an important thing. And Dirk, have you got anything to add around that?
No, I would just say I agree that is one of the coolest features of Veeam. I will say at Virtual Systems, we use nimble storage. So when you push data to us, we use those all flash, hybrid flash arrays. And that makes a big difference when you're thinking about like recovery speeds and even things like your cold storage. The type of storage that you're using it makes a big difference in the analytics that we can give you on some of that stuff, or that, there's other service providers too. But I think the fact that Veeam does that really kind of storage agnostic move is terrific. So we're at the first prize. I see a lot of stuff going on the Q&A. I will tell you, this is as smooth of a process as we can make it. So I'm going to pass the ball over to Katie at Veeam, and she's going to grab it. You should, again, a lot of work going into watching the Q&A and making sure that we're getting people's names onto a prize wheel, and then she's going to spin it.
All right. This first one is for a $100 Amazon gift card.
All right, big money.
All right, congratulations.
Philip Sue. I hope I'm saying that last name right. So there it is, boom. Congratulations, Philip. So the way this is gonna work is everybody will get emails after this, and we'll send out the video, and we're gonna send out even the Q&A dialogue too. So if you ask some good questions, or you're interested, or you see some stuff happening there, you're gonna see that again. Again, like our goal is give you some good content. Hopefully there's some good learning that goes into this thing. So you'll get an email, and this was in the invite, but you do have the opportunity if you'd like to donate instead of get the AWS gift card. You sure can. There's some options we give you, but the prize winners today will get an email, and we'll give you your prize in that way. So. All right, next slides. Where are we at? So this is where we're going to kind of talk about. So we talked high-level architecture a little bit. So you have a little bit of an idea. What are the big building blocks? What are the small building blocks of Veeam? But we also, as a service provider, again, we got conversations going with customers all over the country, all over North America, really. I hope we've got friends in Canada on today with us. But we see a lot of missing pieces, and I know Anthony does too, as a top product guy at Veeam. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what types of things we're seeing that are not there, like kind of common mistakes that are missing. So here's a few that I think we see quite a bit. We mentioned Data Lab a little bit earlier. It was on one of Anthony's slides, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. Insider protection, if you don't know what that is, we'll talk about that. Data activation, retention policy. Anthony, you want to cover what Veeam does with ransomware?
Yeah, so this is obviously something that it's gaining traction, and the thing about, like I mentioned, there's a ton of features and enhancements in Veeam backup replication in the platform that sometimes people won't leverage because they don't know that it's there or don't know how to leverage it. And Data Labs is a really awesome example of that, right? But with regards to ransomware, I mean, obviously we know it's prominent. Even when I was in the service provider land, talking 4 to 5, well now more than 5 years ago, we were getting customers that were crypto locked and that sort of thing, and it was happening quite often. And today it's just gotten more and more advanced and happening more frequently, especially in the era that we're in today. Veeam is focused on trying to solve ransomware, and we've really looked at how we can leverage storage technologies for the most to be able to offer immutability functionality when you are backing up to object storage, or as we're going to talk about in v11, there's a feature there where we got immutability on the primary, but also really just harps back to that 3-2-1 rule of backup, which is always about 3 copies of your data, 2 locations, 1 off-site. 2 media, one off-site has to be in play. So that 1 off-site is so super critical, and that 1 off-site, in theory, should be what we deem air-gapped as well. So that if there is a malicious event, then you're not going to get hit at the same time, right?
Yeah, totally. And I would add here, this is one category, I think, even over the past year or couple of years, that we have just seen as a service provider. We're helping customers recover from stuff on probably a weekly basis. It's not a big deal to help customers recover from stuff. And I think more and more the sentiment, this used to be a saying in the CISO world for a while, but just assume breach, assume it's happening. At some point, we've got a CISO here who I know is listening in, who's terrific at just kind of saying, you know what, like, let's just assume the worst case will always happen. And when we kind of instill that same mindset in our customers too, and you put the right pieces in place, when it happens, it's not earth shattering. And this recovery, I will say, like, for us to walk a customer through, hey, we got a ransomware attack. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to roll back. We're going to recover you, whether it's there on-prem, whether it's in the data center. It's not a big deal. We can do it. It's not super costly. you know, your point here, don't pay the ransom, just restore the data, is terrific. So anything else to add there? This is an example. I know Anthony wrote a bit extensively on this, and maybe you know, as a customer, everybody, maybe there's some users of this, of Garmin, but major issue. Anthony, you want to cover this since you wrote about it?
Yeah, and this is a really, this in some ways, obviously not great that it happens, but in some ways it was probably one of the most high profile ransomware attacks this year, without question, right? In a nutshell, you know, they got hit by a very sophisticated ransomware. It went through their internal network, mostly around Asia first, where they were sort of originated. And then they made the really hard decision to have to basically shut down everything. So they effectively cut off their business from the outside world. And when you think about what these guys did, they offered services, data services effectively to customers with their watches, and also, actually more importantly, their GPS business. So airline pilots couldn't get GPS details, and that was actually the side of it, which wasn't that you know, popular really. It was all about the smart watches that I have on and that sort of thing. But I guess the key here is, you know, what is highlighted for me is, number one, the big companies are getting targeted. Number two, these guys obviously didn't have the right mitigation strategy to handle the ransomware attack. Now on the good side, they actually were able to recover. They paid certain amounts of the ransom, but to Evil Corp, which is a fantastic name for those that are fans of Mr. Robot and whatnot. Those guys drive around. Yeah, they drive around Lamborghinis. Those kids, they're not shy. However, you know, the point is here, they paid it, but we also know, you know, anecdotally, that they actually used Veeam to recover certain parts of their network very quickly as well in certain offices. So that was a really good story. But I think what this really highlights is the fact that, you know, you don't know that the data is important or critical to you until you don't have it. I know personally that I really relied on this data day to day to get my 10,000 steps. And if I didn't get that 10,000 steps, I couldn't track that. There were issues. And what would have happened if I lost that data? And that's the same mentality that you guys have to think about with regards to your data protection strategy. You know, if we translate that to your key critical data for your organizations, what would happen if you lost it? You know, and this is a great example about something that maybe wasn't serious in terms of life or death. However, the data was still critical to somebody, and that was the key. So you have to learn how to protect it. And that's kind of what we're trying to get here. And you need the right tools.
And I would say, I just want to add here that sometimes the perception around this kind of protection is it's complex, it's costly. And with Veeam, I would just add that it is super accessible, and it's not a huge cost. That idea of kind of air gapping, or we call it sometimes provider gapping or network gapping, some of your data and just making sure it's not touched, or it's immutable is the term that Veeam has given it, which is terrific, unchangeable data. That's a very accessible solution. And if you're not having those conversations, we just want to encourage you, find a service provider, or find somebody, have it with us, have it with Veeam. Let's start that dialogue, because just critically important. So this, I want to just kind of, how close are we to another spin? Time-wise, we got to be real close to another spin. So let me skim through this. So this is just kind of a little bit of what else is missing. So I just want a quick touch on Veeam's Data Labs, outstanding tool. So you want to use your data and run searches for credit card information that might be in your data, or any other kind of valuable PHI or other data. Leverage Veeam's Data Labs to do that. Run your sure backup and sure replica, just verifying the veracity of those backups and replicas are happening. Then VAO is just terrific. We've got customers who, your backup is with a provider. So I get questions all the time, like, what's better about virtual systems than like a AWS or an Azure or whatever, or another service provider. And if you're not leveraging Veeam to use your data to do other things, like let's say you're going to test an upgrade, you've got your backup data here. If you're using vSystems as a repository, you've got your backup data here. Let's spin up a lab environment where you can test the update. You can test a migration from this thing to that thing. Use your imagination. You can test it for a week, a month, whatever you want to do. Spin it back down and it's done. And then it just sits as data again. So VAO is a terrific tool to do that. Leverage it again, like it's kind of that If you're doing the backup and replication, good. But if you're not testing stuff, if you're not running your DR tests, or you're not using a lab environment, I mean, super easy with cloud to not make the investment in the hardware, and spin up a virtual environment, use it for what you need, spin it back down. So Anthony, anything on that? Oh, this pilot light is so good, but I'll get back to that in just a second. We got to keep spinning prize wheels.
Do the spin, yeah, do the spin.
Stay on track.
Hey
Katie,
guys,
am I handed over to you?
I've got a lot of names still to fill. If I have one more minute, if you guys want to address any questions in the chat right now,
sure.
We'll spin it in 1 minute.
Yeah, because there
Anthony, go ahead.
I've never seen so many questions. It's crazy. I'm just going to start with this one. Will there be an agent for Mac and V11? There absolutely will be. So that's an easy one. So there will be an agent for Mac. Let's have a look here and go. Can V11 do Microsoft Teams granular restore? So V11 can't, but we have Veeam backup for Office 365 version 5 that will be able to do that for sure. So just handle that as well. Geez, there's so much here. I'm not sure how to actually handle the craziness that there is here. So maybe let's have a look. Dirk, did you want to pick out some questions as well?
Yeah, I'm looking. I did love Dylan Craig's question. When's V11 being released?
Yeah,
but I'm looking for.
I might just answer this one. Does Veeam have our own cloud? No. We very much partner with guys like Virtual Systems, and that's how we go through the channel, right? So we're 100% channel. We would, at this point in time, we would never do our own cloud. We love our service providers.
And so Josh asked a really good question I want to grab. What's the best way to re-architect Veeam you didn't build? I would say engage some Veeam experts. So kind of like that, start at the beginning. We do this, Virtual Systems does this for free. We'll get in there. I know Veeam does this for free also, where you can grab a Veeam architect, but you just have the question with somebody who knows Veeam and do it as hey, this is what we got. This is what it looks like. This is what we're using today. What do you recommend? That type of service is kind of that entry-level service with a lot of providers like Virtual Systems. Again, Veeam will do it. So I'd say go there, start that dialogue and just say, like, here's what we got. What do you think about it? And you'll get some ideas, and some of it you'll want to do yourself, and some of it you can, part out to somebody else to do. So great questions. Yeah, this is some great questions. Katie, how you feel? You ready?
Oh yeah, we're ready.
Okay, here it comes. I'll pass you the ball. Holy cow.
It's getting busy.
Oh, here we go. Lauren Neal.
Lauren, congratulations, $100 gift card coming your way. And I am going to pull sharing back over to me, and we'll keep plugging away. And we'll give it another 10 minutes. So this is just I want a quick touch on this. This is Pilot Light. I think Azure uses this same term, but the idea real quick here is that this is your site on the left. So you've got your backup server, got a proxy there, you've got scale out backup repository happening there on your side. You can spit some of these backups up to object, cheap storage, right? Virtual Systems uses some cool technology, some, not as cold object storage, we'll say. So even file level recovery still happens very fast there, but it's cheap storage. And if you ever have anything happen there, we can give you a vCloud Director, so VMware tool, if you're not familiar with it. We can pull your backups into an environment where you can use those again and you can recover to that environment. It's not really, I hope you are understanding or seeing some of the nuances that it's not, I think it's beautiful and elegant, but it is not hot standby DR. It is a way to just kind of like safety net, feel like, okay, worst case happens, we're still okay. So I just wanted to call that out. And then we'll keep moving here if I can ever figure out. Some sneak peek stuff. So Anthony, go ahead. This is it's a little bit of an eyesore, but there's some favorites on here. So you want to just kind of name some cool stuff that V11 is doing?
Yes, obviously we're going to deep dive a little bit in the next couple of slides into a few of these new features, right? But this is the brief feature list. And, when I say brief, there's about 150 different features and enhancements that are coming in V11. But if you look at it, there's really something for everybody here, right? And a lot of the questions that we're seeing here, a lot of these features enhancements maybe will actually answer, some of these questions, right? So, obviously continuous data protection for those low RPOs we've talked about, the evolution of the scale-up backup repository with an added archive tier, which is sending data to Glacier and that longer-term archive. We're adding for the providers VCD to VCD replications of vCloud Director, which is something that guys like Virtual Systems will be able to take advantage of. We've obviously talked about the immutable Linux repository, which is a ransomware mechanism. And then there's all sorts of under the hood stuff as well that we've improved. So what's great about Veeam as a software-driven platform is that we can release these updates and drive better scalability and performance from these updates, right? So yeah, it's almost too many to go through, but let's maybe go to the next slides and just get into some in a little bit more detail. So the first one is CDP. We've talked about it a little bit. The continuous data protection. This is for VMware. And basically what it's doing, it's allowing customers to effectively intercept the IOs as they're being sent to and from the VM through some what we call storage APIs, and then they're being then copied and replicated off from the source to a target. And that means what you're going to get is extremely small RPOs, so restore point objectives. We're talking seconds here. So currently with the snapshot-based replication, which is the bread and butter we've been doing for years, you get 15 minutes is kind of like an optimal sort of RPO for that. So that means that you take a backup every 15 minutes of that particular machine. You could get it down to sort of 5 minutes if you're using something like VMware vSAN, but with CDP, that's going to be really drilled down to seconds. And what that means is that when you come to recover a workload, you've now got this slider where you basically say, let's try and go back every 15 seconds for the last 4 hours and work out where we have to recover to. So extreme granularity, which obviously means that we're targeting critical workloads. And that's where you want to start to think about the criticality of those workloads, of your VMs, what they're running, and then maybe set the top 3 or 5%, because this is kind of what we're targeting, because CDP has an overhead. The overhead is more storage, more network throughput, right? And probably a little bit more CPU, because obviously it's crunching through, all the IOs as well. So it's basically where I think it's going to sit, the top 3 to 5%. And then basically with that policy that we talked about before, you effectively categorize all the rest of your workloads. But I'm really looking forward to it. What about you? Like, are you guys looking forward to this, Dirk, in terms of productizing this and offering it to your customers?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this is huge. So this is super exciting. Obviously, if you know Veeam and you're on this call, you know that Veeam's been talking about CDP for a long time. It's a terrific technology. It's one of the places in the market that if you're going to try to make an argument against Veeam, that'd be where you had to make it over past years. And so it's super exciting to see CDP, bubble up and finally become available. I just want to reiterate what Anthony just said that I think is really kind of critical, and back to some of the earlier conversation, back up on everything, okay? Like, back everything up. Do your stuff locally, you're backing it up, get a copy off-site somewhere. Then, I think I'm hearing you say, Anthony, this is really like your hot 5% or whatever, could be 15%, depending on your organization. You know that best, but identify your stuff that you're like, we can't live without this. This is what you're replicating. So that really kind of helps. And again, like, there's 2 costs to these things. You're backing stuff up, but if you want to get stuff off site, it's a different cost to replicate that stuff, obviously, than it would be just to back it up. But when you do it that way, it's very accessible cost. And so I just, again, want to kind of feed that idea to everybody here. That's the best way to do it, is identify your hot stuff. That's what you're replicating. And then run these tests. Do it. Recover, practice a test. At Virtual Systems, we're doing that with our customers. You call us up, you say, hey, we want to practice this thing. We want to spin up in your environment. Even if you're doing it on site and you're not using a service provider for anything, practice. Like, it didn't happen if you're not practicing it. You're not ready if you didn't practice it. So, this is a good, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Just a bit of a comparison in terms of what you can do and what you can't do with CDP. Obviously, it's a little bit different mechanism, so you can't do a few things. specifically around data labs at the moment, which is, our way to sort of verify backups holistically. No file over recovery from CDP. That's an important one to think about. But as an offset to that, maybe what you could do is put an agent within that in that machine to do the file level part of that. So there's always ways around these sorts of things. And then for the moment, no Cloud Connect just yet, which obviously virtual systems offer Cloud Connect, so you won't be able to do Cloud Connect replication just yet with CDP.
So sad.
It's coming though. It's coming. I'm pretty sure it's going to come. Yeah.
And I don't think it makes it less exciting at this point just to be able to have the functionality in there. So, boom, yes, we're on the prize wheel again. Katie, how you feeling? Should we ask or answer a couple questions before we kick it over? What do you see in there, Anthony? Anything?
Yeah, if you want to answer a couple, then we're good to go.
Still, let's have a look here. Well, backups interrupts CDP functionality. So at the moment, the short answer is you would not have a backup for a CDP enabled workload, okay? But what we do as part of the policy is we create an effective, almost like a snapshot backup of that within the CDP policy, which is as good as a backup, okay? So that eliminates the need for a backup. So you won't have to worry about that. Is CDP an add-on or a cost? No, it's basically included in the edition. It's going to be in our sort of our enterprise edition. And in terms of configuration, it's literally just let's deploy the agents onto the ESXi hosts and then set up a policy and then basically get it up and running. So look, you can get it up and running within 2 to 5 minutes if you're quick with your fingers.
Yeah, good stuff. Olivia, good question. Would a support tech be on hand to assist our team if we're upgrading to V11? I don't know. I don't know if Veeam does that. Virtual Systems does do it. You could probably find other providers who do it. You just call somebody up and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Just need some experts in the room while we do it. So that's a good one. That's a good question too. I gave the ball over to you, Katie, so you can spin that thing whenever you feel like it. Katie, you there?
Sorry, guys. Yep, I just had one more name to add.
Anthony, any plans to separate the license model for O365 services? This is a Curtis question. If we only need Exchange Online backups, no need for additional services. I don't think so. I would think it's just
because basically you're looking at one user cost there because the one account can have Exchange or SharePoint or OneDrive or Teams. And so really what you're doing is you're saving on the data that you're backing up there. So it would be minimal. The cost of that license is actually very insignificant compared to.
It's very small. I would say that too. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep. It's already very small. So a lot of people on a prize wheel.
Yeah. It's getting exciting. What are we up to here?
We got, is this 100 again? What did we say? This might be the last 100. Matt, it's you, that kid.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Matt. Next one will be a $250 gift card. We'll do 2 of those, and then we'll do a next-gen console. Your pick. So let's see here. What are we getting into now?
Okay. So
all right. I'm gonna be honest. This is my favorite. This is my favorite new thing that's coming out. So
you kick off on this one. I reckon you kick off on it, and then I can add a bit of color.
So now you can use VCD to manage your replication jobs in Veeam. So this is big for virtual systems because we use VCD a lot for our customers. So that's a portal you get to kind of manage your virtual environment. It's a VMware portal. It's terrific. It's user interface is really, you can see it. We did a little screenshot there. It's really clean and nice and intuitive. But now you get to use that to manage some of your replication jobs. So you want to spin up an environment over and run a test. That's now easier than it's been before. And I think that's what makes me most excited about it, because you hear me harp a little bit on do the test, make sure you do a run through. This just makes it easier and more intuitive to do that stuff. So really cool technology from Veeam to help make that easier. Go ahead and add what you want there, Anthony.
Yeah, no, like you said, I think this is an amazing feature which our providers are going to leverage, and the benefit really goes to the customer, to the tenant, right, in terms of what they can do to add more protection for their workloads within your cloud. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, good stuff. It's really, it's really cool. So NAS backups, you could take that one.
Yeah, so NAS backups for those guys out there, I mean, obviously most people will, and when we say NAS backup here, just to clarify, we're not just talking about the big NASs, you know, your FAS NetApps, all that, ONTAPs, all that kind of stuff, right? Isolons. We're talking about even file shares on Windows and file shares on Linux. That's what our NAS feature basically encompasses, right? So when we're talking about this functionality in this feature set, it's for those sorts of things. So, you know, the ability to extend, you know, and actually get your NAS backouts out to follow that 3-2-1 rule into the archive tier for longer retention. That's obviously an important one. I think we've got the next slide here as well that goes into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, let me just quick sound off on this cloud NAS idea. So just a cool thing that's coming. So technology is not quite here yet, but I imagine sometime early 2021, maybe middle of the year, but we're going to have the ability, and this is more just me kind of bragging on virtual systems, but the ability to kind of take your local NAS and extend that right out into the cloud. So if you got limitations on your local NAS, and we've had this question for years from customers who are like, I've got to buy another, you know, NAS on site, or can you help me like just manage this data? But this is the ability to really kind of plug cloud right into your NAS and let that scale infinitely out into the cloud. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, another slide on NAS backups.
Yeah, and we're just adding some more functionality into the feature. We're adding a thing called so basically there's going to be a read-only instant recovery, so you can basically instantly recover the mount and do stuff with the data that's there. So you know, if something happens to the data, you can mount the backup directly from an instant recovery and then access the data there. We're also adding integrations with hardware, so hardware integration to basically make the change file tracking even quicker, which means that those, you know, when we're talking about billions and billions of files, that's so important. So, you know, like we've done with VMware with snapshot hardware integration and whatnot, we're doing that in v11 for NAS backups, which means that you're able to offload a lot of those operations to the hardware, to the storage system, which obviously just makes things a lot better.
Yep.
So yeah, so
Love for Linux
repository. Yeah, this is awesome. And just you're going to see a few Linux things now, and you know what we've called this is Linux Love. And there was actually a question about Linux I saw in the actual Q&A, right? So, you know, we're going very hard on Linux. You know, we understand that our customers want to reduce their licensing costs and their reliance on Windows, and this is what we're doing here. And you know, you've seen that in previous years, but now we're really pushing it very, very hard. So the Hard on Linux repository, it's all about creating an immutable primary landing zone. Okay, we previously had this immutability feature, which was, you know, backed by object storage, Amazon S3 and S3 compatible. And now what we've done is we've decided to go and say, look, we're going to build in the functionality into the Veeam backend replication to be aware of XFS technology that does block cloning, but also immutability flags as well. And that just means that when your backups land on the primary landing zone, they are going to be safe from a ransomware attack because they can't be changed. They're immutable. That's the whole concept of immutability. So really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, let me, because I know I'm watching Q&A as we go here, and on that topic of immutability, I got a question from Blake, who I remember from way back. We had some good conversations, but he's talking about healthcare and hospitals being under attack the last few weeks. Maybe you can speak on that topic of immutability, Anthony, as we move slides here. How does Veeam protect the data at rest from being hit with ransomware, and kind of give customers the reassurance that backups are protected even if they're in the cloud?
Yeah, so obviously if they're in the cloud, you know, if you want to be backed by an object storage repository that has immutability flags turned on, that'll protect it. It's all about effectively setting those flags on the data as it sits. So as soon as it lands on the repository, you set the flag, and therefore it cannot be changed, and not even the root user. That's such a key thing there. Like if you do this on Amazon S3 and you set object lock on the bucket, and basically we then mark the blocks as we upload them as immutable, not even the Amazon itself can actually delete these blocks. That's how immutable they are. So yeah, that's obviously fun times if you whack up a couple of 100,000 terabytes and you're going to pay for it for a while, but you know, that is what it is. But at least your data's safe.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. And that's basically just talking about that moving forward. So let's move to the next slide.
Yeah.
Where we are talking about
file restore helper appliance.
File restore. Yes, I don't know whether you want to, I mean, you've probably been in situations and your engineers have been in situations where customers have wanted to do file level recovery of Linux file systems.
Yeah.
And it can be a little bit painful because you have this concept of that, what we call the helper appliance, which leverages, you know, port 22 and a few other bits and pieces. So what we decided to do was basically create a purpose-built Linux machine, which you build up yourself, again, agnostic. That's what we're all about, no matter what flavor you want. And then effectively mark that machine as a helper host, which then does all the mounting itself, right? And that just means that you're not going to be deploying a helper appliance every time you want to do a file level recovery, okay? And what it also means is that this machine can work in agentless systems as well. So if you haven't got access to the hypervisor, this machine just basically acts as the go-between. So again, for customers on premises, they can take advantage of this, and also cloud providers are going to be able to offer this as a service through the self-service portal that we have and other bits and pieces. Now, data integration API. This is something that I'm quite keen for people to understand, because maybe, again, it's one of those features that we don't quite talk about. And we first released this in V10. And what this is all about is the activation of data that's otherwise sitting there doing nothing. Now, you know, Dirk, you guys know that you guys would back up a lot of data, and for the majority of the time, it just sits there doing nothing, right? 90, 80, 90, 100% of the time, it just sits there. It's an insurance policy. What we're trying to do with the data integration API is effectively activate that data for you guys, for the customers, the partners, and then more importantly as well, from a virtual systems point of view, maybe create some services around this, which will then allow you to mount the backup data, mount a file system to a Windows or a Linux box, and do stuff with that data. And when we're talking about stuff, you know, I talk about PCI compliancy, you can do some offline ransom, you know, virus checking, you can do image detection, you can run AI, ML stuff across these file systems offline, because you know that they're not going to be impacting, right? Because if they're in production and you do that stuff, it's impacting. So we really wanted to try and make that the case that you would actually take your data in the backups and do things with it. And in V11, what we've done is we've extended it not only to support mounting Windows file systems, but mounting Linux file systems as well. And also extending that out for all image-based backups. So even Nutanix and the vCloud Director stuff, you can now run the data integration API. But Dirk, I mean, I know that you understand the concept, but maybe did you want to try and spin that in a different way, maybe for people that are maybe still grappling with it? Because I know it can be a little bit difficult to grasp.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think you're doing it well. And I mean, you're already getting close to out of my depth on it. So I thought that's good stuff. Good. I don't dare follow you on that. That's good.
No, and this is a cool one. This is actually, for me, this is such an important one, right? I know the pain of having to deploy Windows proxies. I mean, one of the great things about Veeam is that we're scalable, very, very scalable, right? And the data movers or the Linux proxies is the heart of that scalability. But we don't like deploying Windows boxes because, you know, they take up licensing. And if they're just doing the data moving, why do we have to deploy that? So in V11 or in V10, we started this move towards Linux backup proxies, but it was only available for our hot add functionality. So in V11, we're basically adding all functionality to it. So you can do network mode, direct SAN, backup and storage snapshots. Effectively, it's a one-to-one now. What the Windows proxy was, you can now do with a Linux proxy. So that's really important there. And I think it's going to be a big one as we move towards, you know, customers using less and less Windows.
Yep, agreed. And I think we're seeing that trend a bit already too. So let me quit. How close are we to the next spin the wheel? So a couple more. Let's do.
Maybe do we want to spin the wheel now, maybe, and then we get back to service provider console.
Yeah, you ready, Katie? You ready? If we
sure
do a wheel spin again. Okay, let me hand it over. Anthony, I don't know if you, as I'm handing it over, if you see anything in the Q&A you want to.
Yeah, let me just
address. There's some really good questions. I just want to say I appreciate, I mean, this is the most Q&A we've seen. I know there's some incentive behind it, but again,
I've never seen so much Q&A, yeah.
Yeah, how do we like incentivize people to, you know, participate in the discussion? This is great. So really appreciate everybody just throwing some questions in there and throwing some answers in there. I hope everybody wins a prize.
Okay, let's have a look. I'm going to say, I'll just answer this very quick question. Pricing information on V11. If you're an existing customer, it's basically as is. If you're a new customer, please reach out to a salesperson, or even I think Virtual Systems could probably help you there as well, depending on the services that you get from them as well. What Linux versions will be required to run V11? So V11 is not going to be run on Linux. It's like in terms of like itself, the main engine is still running on Windows. Linux proxy though, and the other things that we've seen here in terms of Linux, we're talking CentOS, Red Hat, Debian. I think SUS is supported. So basically, there's a fair few there that we've run in our Q and A or QA services there. So yeah, all the major ones that you'd expect, but you know, obviously if you're running CentOS or Debian or Red Hat, you're pretty much covered.
Cool.
All right.
Go ahead, Katie, 250 bucks. Yep. Amazon. Who is it? Oh man, that's close. Robert Whited. Congratulations, Robert.
Well done.
Super close to somebody else. That was like somebody who has a last name that looks like Luxembourg. I'm sorry for your loss. It was so close.
Alrighty.
Yeah, service provider console. So some really cool new things for service provider console. Really, I mean, the message here is just more functionality, which is exciting.
That's it. Yeah, and for those that don't, and I was going to say, for those that don't know what service provider console is, it's really for our service providers. It's a platform for them to basically offer awareness and control to their own customers and their tenancies, right? So they can offer us a login where tenants can log in, they can view their backups, they can see alarms on their backups, they can control agents as well, deploy and control agents. The big thing in our version 5, which is set to release lockstep with V11, is that we're basically supporting Veeam agents for Linux and Mac as well as Windows, so full supportability there. And that new Mac agent that you see, we're supporting our cloud products as well. So for those that don't know, we're going to actually got a slide in a couple of slides. We've got the cloud products that are coming out. So Veeam Backup for, when I say cloud, I mean a public cloud. So Veeam Backup for AWS and Azure, there's plugins there. And then we're adding a few more bits and pieces in there. RESTful API, for those of you that are leveraging or can use RESTful APIs, we've actually got this set as a tiered system as well. So not only can virtual systems come and do stuff with the APIs, but they can segment it out and grant the tenants access to it as well. So, you know, there's all sorts of cool ways to be consuming this platform. So we're really excited about this. And, you know, as this platform matures, the advantage that virtual systems has that it can give to its tenants is quite huge.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it is really cool to see Veeam continue to build that up and that functionality. And I will say, our team at Virtual Systems does a terrific job when those features are available. We're on it right away. We're, you know, those first cloud service providers to market with the brand new features. So, but love the way Veeam continues to innovate on that solution. You don't have to deploy Veeam with a cloud service provider, obviously, but they give you great, robust tools to do it, and it is a great way to do it. So, yeah, a little more on that. Oh, and we're at another.
Yeah, might as well. Time's getting short, so let's hammer it up.
Let's do it. 250 bucks again. Let me hand it over to Katie again.
See if I can get some more questions here.
Yeah.
Through here. I think what we'll do with the questions, because they're all so good, and we're obviously going to be able to get to all of them, all sort of 200 and 300 questions now. It's crazy. So what we'll probably do is maybe Dirk will just kind of work out how we can best tackle the questions once we'll write them all down.
Yeah, so everybody's going to get a distro. Like I said, the video, the chat will be there. But I know I can hand these questions off to our technical sales managers at Virtual Systems. They'll go through. We're doing some follow-up emails to everybody. So if you want that question answered, I know we've got some terrific people on our team who can give you some great answers. So we'll go after it that way.
All right, I'm going to do another spin here. And guys, remember, if you're asking questions, to please include your last name. I have a couple here I didn't catch in time, but I did get your first. So hopefully, you know, we'll figure that out later if you win. But just a reminder to put your last name in when asking questions. All right, here we go. This is for the last $250 Amazon.
I think there's two more 250s.
Oh.
This one and one more. Oh, that's on the line. Michael Murphy. Congrats, Michael Murphy. $250 coming your way. 260 if you went over to one of our social media accounts and liked it or followed us. And I got share privileges back. So we got a couple more slides. We'll try and stay on time. I know there's just 4 more minutes here.
Hammer these last two. I think we're here. Yeah, so here we're just talking about Office 365 enhancements. Effectively, in a nutshell, this is all about Microsoft Teams. So for those that obviously are running Microsoft Teams, we're on Zoom, but Teams is critical at the moment. We're now able to back that up and recover it as a first-class citizen. So that's pretty exciting there. And that's actually just around the corner to come through. So yeah, I mean, you guys, just Virtual Systems, how are you guys leveraging VBO at the moment?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of this Office 365 stuff. This has been probably one of the more popular solutions from Veeam over the last couple of years. I mean, there's just been a real insurgence, let's say, of, you know, or new awareness about, hey, just because my data is in Office 365 or with Microsoft, that doesn't mean it's always, you know, recoverable. It's not easy to grab. So what Veeam has done in kind of making the management of that data all custom and all for you is terrific. We actually are in the middle of onboarding the largest Office 365 deployment that Veeam has ever done for a customer right now. So that's pretty exciting. It's super scalable, super easy, and really, I saw somebody ask, you know, is it ever going to be part of B&R? I would guess no, but it's super easy to kind of bolt on and very, you know, cost efficient. Like we said before, that license cost per user is very low. And then the way we will do it often at Virtual Systems, you can consume it in one of two ways. You can consume it as kind of an all-in-one per license cost where we wrap it in storage as well. Or you can, if it makes more sense, we can consume it per license for the users and then per terabyte of storage for larger deployments. Quite often that makes more sense because it's more cost efficient for you. So, but just, you know, great enhancements to this solution. And we're about at the end. Man, we're going to make this on time. I was a little bit worried the way we started out there, but you want to hit this stuff?
Now we got there, yeah. I think actually one question one thing that I wanted to, just before we go into this one, it was a good question about how do you get started with Veeam in terms of, you know, trials and software and whatnot. The great thing is that we've actually got a community edition as well. It's remiss to talk about that, but the community edition is actually free up to 10 licenses to basically give you guys full functionality of the standard edition to kick the tires with. And then obviously, you know, beyond that, and again, that's just a download the ISO, deploy it to Windows. We've got some automation tools out there as well that you can get on our GitHub page called Veeam Hub, which you can automate a lot of the stuff that we've got. A lot of the creation of PowerShell, that sort of thing, leveraging infrastructure as code with Terraform. But effectively, yeah, it's very easy to get started. And then if you want to go a little bit beyond that, again, you can probably hit up the guys at Virtual Systems or our sales guys to get extended sort of trial keys and whatnot.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, really cool stuff. I mean, Veeam continues to lead. Go ahead. Veeam continues to lead the market here on innovation, and so it's just fun to, you know, kind of peek under the hood and see, like, all right, what's coming? What's the pace? What's the direction of really backup and DR in the market? And Veeam continues to kind of pave the way for that. Go ahead, read it.
I was just going to say, just we'll just touch on the previous slide because I didn't really talk about it just very quickly before we ran out of time. So the previous slide basically showing you our products that are based on the public cloud. So we're looking at Veeam Backup for AWS, Veeam Backup for Azure, and just announced, which isn't out yet, is Veeam Backup for Google Cloud. So we're really looking to extend what we can back up, but also then what virtual systems can offer you guys as a managed service. Okay, it's very important. So obviously we want virtual systems to be housing the data that you back up in some way, and those tools that we've talked about are going to be effectively your mechanism to be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm passing the ball over to Katie, and I just want to say again, as we're spinning the wheel 2 times here. So one is a $250 Amazon gift card, and the last one is going to be your choice of the new Xbox or the new PS5. And so again, emails will come to you. We are in the follow-up campaign. So when you see the emails from us, even if you didn't win anything, you want to set up an appointment with one of our technical sales managers and have some more conversation about this. We're going to give you $50 to do that too, another Amazon gift card. So if you didn't win anything yet, you can that way. And I just want to thank everybody for participating in this way. I think this was awesome to see a lot of people just adding some Q&A. Again, I hope you feel some value in either watching us, listening, or the Q&A that's happening. I hope you feel like, hey, there's some good nuggets in there. And it's hard in IT, right? Like we're in a silo a lot of times, and you're like, man, I'm doing this whole thing on my own, and it's hard to reach out to people. So hopefully we create that kind of environment here, and you come away a little bit smarter on some stuff about Veeam. So Katie, go ahead. You got the prize wheel?
All right. So this is for one more Amazon and then the Xbox or PS5. Got a lot of names here.
I mean, your chances aren't great, but they're better than not spinning the wheel. Austin Peters, $250. Congratulations.
All right. Another one I think everyone's been waiting.
Email. Here it is. Big one. Next gen console. I don't even know what I would pick. I was asking my son this morning, and he was like, I think I'd pick the PS5.
Yeah, so I'd go the Xbox. I've always just got a soft spot for it.
Joe Delgadillo.
Well done, Joe.
Congratulations, man. Appreciate it. Again, thank you to everybody for being on today. Hope it was valuable. Appreciate everybody's time. Look for us in the email box after the event.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.